are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for listening to the Locked On Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Mike Luke, John Schuster. All right. We talked a lot of NBA playoffs yesterday. Let's talk a little bit of football here, Pac-12 South edition. I watched the USC spring game, and I'm not going to pretend that I watched all of it, but I watched about 5 minutes of it.
Wow.
Okay. 5 more minutes than a lot of people probably did. I believe that, that door that was open for about the last 12 years in the South, something like that. I believe that door is about to be shut.
Okay.
I believe that Arizona football can continue to ascend, but I believe that USC under Lincoln Riley is probably going to be running things here for, if not this year, for the foreseeable future very soon.
I can understand that, and that's the reason that USC brought him into the fold. But it becomes
makes sense.
Yeah, it at least becomes interesting that Arizona appears to be moving in a direction that makes it better for them to slot, as opposed to where they could have been. If Riley had been hired maybe 2 or 3 years earlier, when Arizona was a disaster,
we're coming off a 1-11 season, but we are not a disaster.
For all intents and purposes, Arizona's still a football disaster, but there's light at the end of the tunnel that does not appear to be a train. So, it looks like the recruiting class has gone well. You've got some good quarterbacks and some good skill people in the fold. People rightfully expect Arizona to be more competitive this year. If they keep stringing together good recruiting classes on top of that, then they ought to be pretty good. And that gives them maybe an opportunity at this point in time to be ahead of ASU, which is clearly in trouble. Stay ahead of Colorado, which is clearly in trouble. And then you're battling UCLA and Utah for positioning in that conference. And with an opportunity, if you've got the right kind of players, to be able to see if you can catch USC at the right time and get into some good bowl games as a result. Is SC going to get better talent? Is SC better? Yeah. But even when Pete Carroll was here, Oregon State could beat SC. So it was tough for even those USC teams to run the gauntlet through what's a difficult enough week-to-week conference. And so is USC going to win a bunch of South titles and probably Pac-12 titles under Lincoln Riley? Yeah, more than likely. But does that mean that you can't catch them here and there? No, you can do that.
But this was really, I think, the first home run hire the conference has had since Chris Peterson took over at Washington, 8-9 years ago. I mean, I can't even really remember. This is really the first time where it felt like USC was like, all right, we're done screwing around with bums. We're done screwing around with people that we know because they were here for 1 year or whatever. We're going to get a real established coach. So I would imagine that they're going to be really good. But if you're Arizona, let's be honest, your basis of your success is not viewed off Pac-12 South championships right now. It's viewed off continuously getting better. You got one win this year, or one win this past year. What did I think you and I put it at this year that we'd like to see? 4?
Yeah, I think so.
4, and then you get into 7, and who knows? By year 4, you start looking, okay, I got a lot of the senior-laden group. Maybe I can compete. But I think that's what you got to look at if you're Arizona. But I did get the sense watching this that the Pac-12 South is about to be.
It makes sense, And the thing is, as frustrating as it is, if you're not USC, from a national standpoint, the Pac-12 wants USC to be dominant. They want them to roll through their half of the conference, because then the Pac-12 gets a lot more national attention, because instead of your top team being ranked 12th, your top team is ranked 3rd. And if you're 3rd, then you're in the conversation for being in the playoffs, and then the conference gets a lot more air behind it. And that's what the conference wants. That's how other conferences have marketed themselves. That's how somehow Oklahoma has gotten into it, seemingly an endless amount of playoff slots, and never
perform well for sure.
So it's that's what I think they're hoping for out here. And frankly, I think one of the real tests in regards to what is USC. Does USC has a lot of talent? Are they going to bring in a lot of talent? Yeah, I think both of those things are obviously true. How good are they defensively? That mattered at Oklahoma eventually.
Let's talk about that. But first, I want to talk about Built Bar. We always talk about it. The difference with the really good schools, they got the big man in the trenches. Built Bar, duh. I mean, I look at it. Do you think that Built Bar is more prolific in the South than maybe it is in the other parts of the country?
Oh, it absolutely is. And there's one singular reason for the most consistent team in the conference that we haven't discussed. The reason that the South is as competitive as it is because of Utah, where Built Bar is based.
I was going to say Built Bar is based out of Utah.
Think of who's got consistently one of the better front lines in this conference.
Right.
And it's the Utah Utes.
Right.
So is that coincidence?
Right. I don't think so. Let's take a quick break. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats. All right, let's make fun of ASU.
Okay.
ASU just lost 2 more starters. Wow. ASU is in a very bad situation right now. And the reason they're also in a bad situation is because they haven't necessarily hit rock bottom yet. And you don't know when rock bottom is going to hit because you can't get a good coach right now because they have no clue what's going to happen there. And these could be significant sanctions we're talking about right here. So what ASU looks like a dumpster fire for the foreseeable future.
And the foreseeable future could be 5 years.
Right.
And that's the weird thing, I think, in college athletics. We think that in the moment, and I think Arizona and ASU, what's happened in the last couple of years, are very good examples of this. We look at these as being long-term problems because they're major short-term issues.
Right.
For Arizona, as an example, 2 years ago, when you were looking at the difference between Arizona and ASU, you were thinking, holy crap.
Right.
Hurley's got them winning 20 games. Arizona's under sanctions. The Arizona football team's a complete disaster. It looks like Edwards is bringing in talented players. You know, that ASU football team looks like it's finally on the verge of breaking through. We don't know what
and they were incredibly
talented,
but man, they were dumb.
And if the U of A doesn't have a basketball team, then what the hell is this university going to fall back on?
Right.
Because its football team is a disaster right now. Well, a year or two later, it's that brief.
It's that brief, yes.
So I don't know how ASU is obviously dealing with serious problems with its football program.
Right.
Are those serious problems going to be a 1-year thing, a 3-year thing, a 5-year thing, or beyond? Well, that remains to be seen, and there's a lot of uncertainty in the way that lays out. But they're in a bad spot. Their basketball program, I think, is okay, but it's leveled off.
Right.
You know, it feels
that upside that I think maybe people looked at doesn't seem to be there.
It's maybe he's peaked.
Right.
Maybe he's topped off. You know, and so there are a lot of odd. You know, there's a lot more uncertainty, I think, with what's happening at ASU and what could happen in the foreseeable future at ASU than there is at Arizona. You feel good about Arizona's basketball program.
Right.
You feel like Arizona's football program, whatever that means, is heading in a positive direction and a decent positive direction.
Right.
It's not like Arizona's heading into a positive direction because in the long term they could be a 4-win football team. You feel like Arizona's heading in a positive direction because they could win 8 or 9. They could be similar to the consistency of what's been going on at Utah. And if they could do that, then, you know, you feel pretty good about your chances to be competitive. Right now, you know, and we'll see if that plays out. Obviously, that's still down the road a little bit, whether, you know, that topping off point is possible. Right now, you don't know, like you said, what the bottom is for ASU, and that's a huge problem.
Have I told you about Rock Auto?
Not since I mentioned to you that a couple days ago I got the Rock Auto email newsletter.
You are a walking billboard for Rock Auto because you've utilized Rock Auto and you know how good it is.
Yes.
It's there, and you know what? I'll tell you what. Let's take a quick break. In the last part, we'll be talking about how great Rock Auto is. All right, Schuster, talk about Rock Auto.
Let me give you 2 examples. I'll give you one more recent example of Rock Auto. I had some fuel injector thing that was acting up in the 2012 Kia Soul. Had to get it fixed. Took it to a shop. Shop says, well, you can only buy our part, which is $1,100, and then we're going to charge you, you know, $125 an hour for labor. So the bill is going to come in at about $1,500. I didn't like that very much. So I decided, wait, I can find this part on Rock Auto for about $350.
Right.
So I bought the part on Rock Auto for $350, which was a third of what the mechanic what the shop was saying that I had to pay for that part. And then I just found another mechanic who could put it on. Took him 20 minutes to do it. Car's been running fine. I got out of that repair for about $500 as opposed to $1,500. And the most significant difference and reason why was the convenience and availability of Rock Auto.
You know what? Everybody have a great day. Rock Auto, you're where it's at. Thanks for listening to the Locked On Wildcats